Salutations, mortals and children of the night. I'm the Vampire Otaku, and this is going to be my review and my love for Neil Gaiman's Snow, Glass, and Apples. It's a tale of Snow White being a vampire, being dark, being somewhat evil. It's a really interesting rendition of the classic fairy tale, and I'm excited to talk about it and excited to dig deep into what makes this short, thin story amazing. Let's get into it. Welcome to Spooky Season. I'm your host, Vampire Otaku. Alright, it's spooky month, and this is a spooky story. I want to show you a little bit of the art, and then we could talk about the story. For it being such a thin book, there is a lot of substance and a lot of story. First of all, Snow White is not really the protagonist in this one, or the narrator. She doesn't say anything, but her presence is huge in the story. She's a menace, she's powerful, and aloof. The narrator is Snow White's stepmother, who isn't really a bad character, just honestly a victim. In the first scenes, hopefully there's no spoilers here, but in the first scenes, Snow White, did some things to the stepmother that were just not good. So the stepmother was like, yo, you gotta go. I don't ever want this to happen to me or anyone else again. Snow White was banished for good reason. After that, she was banished in rather a grotesque way. After that, there was peace for a while, and then the people in the forest, Snow White was banished to the forest. The people of the forest started coming up missing. Snow White's stepmother had to investigate. She found out that it was Snow White's doing, as she suspected. So she tried to take care of Snow White once and for good. Instead, she was taking care of herself. She eventually met her demise. It's a very interesting take on the tale. A lot of characters are just different. A lot of characters have shifted perspective and importance of the story. I will say that the art, in my opinion, is absolutely beautiful. Art by Colleen. The color, it's full color. It's really well done. The text, it's not just normal text. It's a very nice text in the text bubbles. Very neat, very nice. A little small, but there's a lot of story, so it makes sense. What I find weird about this graphic novel is Neil Gaiman's addition, just the way that he writes. He's very descriptive, and even though the art is describing a scene, he'll describe on top of it, and it's interesting. It reads almost like a small novel, but it's set up like a graphic novel, so it threw me off a little bit coming from manga and comic books and whatnot, to have the narrator so descriptive when the images are also descriptive. But it was interesting, and it was different, and I'm never mad at Neil Gaiman for writing more than needs to be written, because his writing voice and his writing style is so pleasant and entertaining. Had it been another writer, I wouldn't have liked it very much, having a scene described twice, maybe even 3 times within the narrator's description, another character's description, and the art itself describing things. For instance, the forest was dark and full of nocturnal creatures. Then you would see a picture of a dark forest with bats and owls flying around, and then another character would walk up and say, wow, it's really dark in this forest and all these creatures flying around. So it kind of feels like that, except Neil Gaiman is so good at describing that it doesn't feel as tedious to take in. As a reader, it was very easy to read this story. It was very easy to take in the information. It never felt overwhelming. I never felt any type of sensory overload with any of the details. That was a ramble. With that being said, the story itself, it's not complex, but it's so well told. You have a king in the beginning. The stepmother is in love with the king in a very healthy relationship. They have space, but they come together when they want each other. They're close, but they're not like codependency. Very healthy. Snow White, not even intentionally, kind of just throws things out of order. She's chaos without even really trying to be. She just wants to explore her nature. She just kind of does things that she feels like, and it's never personal. She feels hunger. She's a vampire. You know what they do. It's never an intention to destroy families or kill someone. It's more of a childlike mindset. I want this. I'm gonna do this to get it. There's never any thoughts of, but if I do that, I could hurt this person, or the world could view me like this, or I could potentially ruin a family. I could potentially ruin this person's life by ruining this person's life. There's a domino effect. There's no extra thoughts involved. There's just, I want this, I'm gonna do this. So Snow White's character was overly simplistic, but it made her darkness darker because there was an innocence, but the innocence was shattered by the grotesque actions that she would do. Snow White's stepmother was justice. She was fair. She was traumatized by what this child had done and kept doing. She was a woman of pride. She wouldn't let anyone see her cry. She wouldn't let anybody see her have fear. She would only feel those things and do those things in the comfort of her own space with no eyes to peer and see. So it was really interesting how honorable she was as a character. There's not a lot of characters in the story. There's a prince. The prince is strange, kind of has like a fetish with cold, dead bodies. So that's interesting, and it plays into the story with Snow White. He was more so of a coward, but he didn't do anything horrible, but he didn't have much of a backbone as a character. He was there being beat up by the storyline, basically. The king was very brief. He was warm and sweet, and you can gradually see him be drained of life and drained of hope, which is really interesting. As he was drained of life and hope, the color of the art began to get more dim. His blonde hair started to turn more of a whitish color. His muscles got smaller. He became more frail. It was super interesting. I mean, the townspeople were interesting. They have a barter system where they trade with the people of the forest. They didn't like the people of the forest, but their money was always good. And the forest people didn't like the people in the village, but they liked the goods that they can trade. So really interesting dynamics between characters. A very interesting story. If you're looking for something spooky, short, full of beautiful art, this is definitely not for kids. It's very dark. It's also some nudity in it. I tried to take care not to show those images. Definitely not for kids, but if you're an adult, 18 and over, and you want to enjoy a fairy tale in a darker manner, in a darker way, I highly recommend this. I highly recommend just about anything that Neil Gaiman writes. He's an amazing writer. And I never heard of Colleen before, but her art is absolutely beautiful. And if you don't like his writing or the story, I think you'd at least love the art. It's full color. It's not very expensive. I think it was like $20. It's hardcover, which is really cool. I say that this graphic novel was high above my expectations, and I recommend it to any one of you that's of age. That being said, thank you so much for listening to this video. I hope you subscribe if you feel like it, and let me know in the comments down below if you read this, or if it's on your list of things to read, or you simply are interested in it and you want to check out a darker fairy tale. Peace.